Hello, and welcome to the Disc Dungeon, where we put you on to musics and melodies in the deepest, darkest dungeons of your computer disk. I'm your co-host, Joe Dove, and with me, as always,
Julian Valencia. And if there's one thing we love talking about, it's music.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, an instrumental album is like the dictionary in every language, including slang. We dabble with two of the most influential bodies of work ever created. Julian is sent back to the 1970s before he was even a thought, to relive one of the scariest moments of his childhood. He'll unwrap the influences behind the most popular genre of music in the past 3 decades, and pays tribute to those influences with a special dungeon flip.
Meanwhile, Joe goes to the bodega for donuts and takes us on a bus ride where we learn of his 8-mile story, where he educates us on the roots that set the foundation for the Virgin Empire as we know it today. Oh man, here we are, Joe, once again in the dungeon.
Oh man, the music and mayhem in this episode is going to be epic. Level up, if you will.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited because we really have 2 albums that are pretty epic and are pretty influential. So I really don't want to waste any time, and I just want to get your opinion, man. This week I put you on to J Dilla's Donuts. What did you think?
I was taken on a musical journey of time and style. I knew this was going to be so special, and I was not disappointed. It was actually like living the stories my family had told me about. Songs like Last Donut of the Night, Light It, and Don't Cry, they just felt like bouncing between the 70s and late 60s with sounds and tones, pleasuring to my ear. Ooh. The new was such an experience, like time travel. I'm hearing drum beats from the late 90s, early 80s hip-hop like Ghetto Boys, KRS-One, and Run DMC. You can hear it best in the next track, People, too, where he brilliantly mixes that killer drum beat from the onset. J Dilla samples music from many eras, and thanks to WhoSampled.com, we can give you those exact artists and songs. On this one, he sampled My People, Hold On, by Eddie Kendricks from 1972, Muji Mar Dalo by Asha Bojali from 1973, Here We Go, Live at the Funhouse by Run DMC in 1985. The new just teleported me to that time. Some of it even reminds me of those moments you half-ass do your homework so you can go home and play a video game. This album is full of imagery without having much or any lyrics. I can see why he's a modern empire builder. The bass and guitar riffs heighten your senses on this track. You have no choice but to bop your head to those beats. These amazing guitars on Bye, which samples the Isley Brothers' Don't Say Goodnight, which is one of 75 songs Dilla sampled. Ironically, a band called 10cc is posthumously suing the estate and record company for illegally sampling The Worst Band Ever on Working on It. This song, he also samples Sprite, Melon Ball Bounce by Raymond Scott, and Buffalo Gals by Malcolm McLaurin. The highlight on this album is the blend of songs. Though on streaming sites, it's broken up into shorter tracks. It's a lot like Mike Oldfield, one endless track. As the album progresses, I'm wondering how often his tunes and beats popped up in my playlists. As a matter of fact, quick track Geek Down is the beat from one of my favorite songs from the band Fantagram, the song When I'm Small. I'm not sure if this is interpolation or sampling, but every time I'm hearing it, I'm like, oh, damn, from this point onward, I'm going to be Fantagram. Did you guys, wait till he was cold? You only came out with this song a year after he died. Anyway, bringing the journey to home, Lightworks. That song uses clips from classic commercials. It's like a fun Easter egg. There he samples Raymond Scott's Song of the Same. The sample starts at 0.05 and plays throughout. This was an epic moment of music, a journey I won't forget. Though it's not a long trip, the journey is complete because of it. I wish I would have found out about this artist earlier. It's the good old-fashioned fun hip-hop that brought the family together in one album. Now, I have to ask you, since he sampled so many different artists, do you think he remembers where he got his originals from?
Honestly, bro, I gotta say no. I gotta say he probably at that point didn't know. You think about the drugs he was on. He wrote most of this album on his deathbed. I just think he was just bearing himself to the world on autopilot, just basically getting a last taste of what he loved to do most. So I just say rest in peace, Jay Dilla. Thank you for leaving on this earth what you left us, and just know that you really changed hip hop forever.
Uploading
Donuts was released February 7th, Jay Dilla's birthday, and he passed away 3 days later after battling lupus, making him part of the 32 Club. He was co-founder of the music group Slum Village. Jay Dilla sampled over 75 songs on Donuts. 30 artists so far have sampled Jay Dilla's work. Donuts is the nickname to the 45 RPM vinyl recorder that he uses to sample music. Donuts can be played as an endless loop. JD uses the same horn sample in 11 of the 30 tracks on this album.
All right, Julian, what did you think of Mike Oldfield's triumphant first album, Tubular Bells?
It's not Mike Oldfield?
No.
Guys, for the longest time, it took me a long time to realize that his name was OLD Field, not OLE.
Ole.
Ole. Oh, guys, this is a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 12 out of 10.
Woo.
Wow, this was really good, man. You did good. You did good, Joe.
Another number one, 10
Yeah,
though,
man.
10 though.
So,
Look
guys,
at this, 210 albums we put each other onto. I rated mine, for those of you that weren't listening, I rated mine a 10.
no, if you were listening, he just didn't get it.
Come
He's
on,
trying
man.
To, he's trying
Don't
to
drop down
fake
on
you
me
out
like
right
that,
now.
brother.
In reality, he just didn't say it. He's trying to cover his tracks. Guys, Tubular Bells was released on May 25th, 1973. This was produced at Virgin Studios. Was it called Virgin Studios back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just was starting out.
Let's just say it is, because we really don't know. But this is broken up into two parts. Each part is about, I'd say about 20, 23 minutes long. So we're talking about a saga or like a orchestrated piece. This isn't just, online you can find Donuts broken down into tracks, but Tubular Bells is straight through. You get two parts. One is 20 minutes. The other one's 20 minutes. Enjoy the ride. So we're going to start on part one. At the start of part one, you hear the iconic glockenspiel that still lingers in my nightmares to this day. So for those of you who don't know, I am referring to the theme song of The Exorcist. And a glockenspiel is an instrument. Just a little FYI. Now that I appreciate music in a different way than when I was 7 years old, which is when I heard or saw The Exorcist for the first time, it's amazing that Mike Oldfield was playing in 15/8. So 15/8 is a way to describe time signature of a song. So in other words, if you're counting a song that you're hearing on the radio, it most likely is counted like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the case of Tubular Bells, it changes. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or as is 15/8 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. You get the point. It's not standard. This isn't mainstream music by any stretch of the imagination. But what's so wonderful about what Mike Oldfield does is that he makes it feel like it's not odd, which in itself is, it really takes somebody who has mastered this in order to be able to do that, where, you're listening to The Exorcist, you're listening to this melody, those bells, they come in, they're eerie, and you know it. You can keep up. It can still be catchy, even though it's arrhythmic, right? Let's move forward. At 4 minutes and 3 seconds, it gets big. What sounds like an array of mandolins, acoustic and electric guitars, and bells, while the Exorcist melody plays in the background, tying it all together. So you just start to hear all these instruments playing. They're not all playing what the Exorcist bells are playing, but you still hear those bells. You still hear that melody in the background, kind of letting you know you're in the same place, but you're heading in a different direction. At 5 minutes and 18 seconds, the glockenspiel takes a solo and starts drifting you into a new direction. Very whimsical and airy, and the piano keeps you grounded. So in this case, it's the piano that kind of keeps you feeling normal, let's call it, and symmetrical, because in reality, the time signatures are all over the place, but he won't ever let you really feel that, because he does it in such a way that you just don't. It's catchy. Then, at 5 minutes and 53 seconds, melodic chaos. Something is coming. And then, boom, the double speed guitar zooms in with what can only be described as lightning, accompanied by electric organ, and falls into this demonic sounding outro. A double speed guitar is literally what it sounds like. He plays the guitar in halftime, half the speed, and then doubles the speed. So it's playing in the regular time that he wants it to play in, but because of that, just adding that effect of times twoing the speed of the guitar, it just has this effect that makes it sound at times almost like a bagpipe. It's really cool. At 7 minutes and 42 seconds, the acoustic guitar struts its stuff and an interchanging 4/4 and 7/8 time signature. So what he's doing now is he's playing that standard 4/4, which I explained earlier, and then at times dropping out into like a 7/8, backed by some triangles, some chimes, and some organs. So again, here you can kind of feel the arrhythmic, but he always has some element that keeps you grounded. And in this case, it's the triangles, the chimes, and the organs that are helping you kind of stay there and just feel like you're not losing your mind. Like, wait, what's going on? So now we enter into one of my favorite parts in part one, and it's only 4 seconds long. At 9 minutes and 11 seconds, the double speed guitar slides in, this time in defiance, and introduces the shrills of the mandolins, setting up the perfect storm for the glockenspiel and melody to make its encore. So we're back with The Exorcist, but it's morphed a bit. It's a little different. But the true star of the show is Mike Oldfield and his soulful guitar playing, showing us that he's more than just Lord of the Rings. Because honestly, up until this point, you could probably play all of this music in part 1, part 2, part 3, Return of the King, the Two Towers, whatever. Like this is the type of music you hear in Lord of the Rings. But he surprises you because he shows you that he can bang out those soulful R&B licks, those bluesy licks that you don't really hear in the Lord of the Rings. So you kind of start to see that he's not just a one-trick pony. Then the recorder makes an appearance with an impossibly high-pitched melody, transitioning into another one of my favorite sections at 11 minutes and 30 seconds. A high-pitched organ partners up with the recorder and sets the foundation, while the iconic double-speed guitar melody bounces back and forth and eventually gets even more bounce when the bass follows the same rhythm. Warning, you won't get this melody out of your head.
It's been stuck in my head since 1995.
Mike loves to shake things up. Who says lightning doesn't strike twice? Because the tone he gets on his guitar is literally lightning. It's so freaking cool. At 13 minutes and 48 seconds, an all-male orchestra comes in and softens the blow right before he goes punk, but with an odd time twist. At 4 minutes and 52 seconds, the tambourine and the organ hold it down as the guitar just has its way around the musicscape. From 16 minutes to about 16 minutes and 19 seconds, he uses the tubular bell and the fading organ to let the energy he created run its course. The acoustic guitar introduces a somber melody. It sounds like the night is ending, but in Oldfield fashion. That doesn't last long because here comes the blues. To finish part one, Mike does something rather unorthodox. He starts off with the guitar and a bass playing in unison, jamming out with an organ in the background as Vivian Stanshaw introduces the cast, which in this case is all of the instruments he's used up to this point. One by one, he announces the different instruments he uses, and that kind of just fades out part one, which is, it's kind of cool. It's not something you're just going to sit there and be like, wow, that was magical, for that last part, but it's kind of cool because in reality, why not? Why shouldn't these instruments get their standing ovation, their time to shine, let's say. Part two. From the start of part two, Mike starts by playing an entrance melody with the harmonics of his acoustic guitar. Here I'm being told a story by the fireside, and he's not even saying a word. This is the best type of story because it can be whatever you want it to be. Mike is setting me up for something. I can feel it. At 7 minutes and 57 seconds, a chorus of females take off, almost like a lullaby. Then, at 8 minutes and 47 seconds, he revives a melody from part one, making his double-speed guitar sound like a bagpipe again. Now I get the feeling I'm going to war. And sure enough, at 11 minutes and 47 seconds, he goes into a rock-style groove with what can only be described as a drunk werewolf on the mic. This part of Tubular Bells is the most standard he's played the whole time, with a 4/4 groove that sounds like The Who came into the studio that day. Everything from 16 minutes to about 21 minutes is absolutely gorgeous. It amazes me how he can be so methodical, but also jam-pack so much soul into his playing. It honestly reminds me a lot of Led Zeppelin, but without the drums. It's almost as if I'm ascending to Valhalla. And I just got to say, I'm understating how amazing these last 5 minutes are of part two. It is my favorite. Let me just be clear about that, Joe. Yep. These last 5 minutes are my favorite. I think obviously that's why I referenced Led Zeppelin, because I love that bluesy, soulful feel that you can get from music, and just the fact that Mike Oldfield can just pretty much, he's a jack of all trades. He can pretty much do everything. That's pretty much what he showed me on Tubular Bells. He's like, I can play any instrument, I could write any song, I could play any way. I can play this like math, and I can play this like I'm just throwing paint on a canvas.
And he also made the recorder cool.
Yeah, made the recorder cool. He made the bagpipes cool without ever playing a bagpipe.
Yeah, I played no bagpipes were heard on this album.
Yeah, so like I said before, guys, this is amazing. This is an amazing experience. I actually listened to part one and part two probably about 6 or 7 times. I've listened to it a lot because, it's not just a body of work that you listen to once and you just kind of get something from it and put it aside. This is something you kind of have to keep going back to. So thank you, Joe.
Uploading
Mike Oldfield started to create the Tubular Bells album at age 18 when he was working as a house guitarist for the Manor Studio. Also, while being the second reserve guitarist in the musical Hair. The intro to Tubular Bells was the theme song to The Exorcist in 1973. The album reached number 1 for a week on the UK albums chart and peaked at number 3 in the US Billboard 200, reaching the top charts in Canada and Australia. It would remain in the UK top 10 for 1 year. Tubular Bells battled Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon for top positions, and landed Virgin as the biggest independent record label, who then signed the Sex Pistols and the Rolling Stones. Richard Branson named the first plane for Virgin Air Tubular Bell. Tubular Bell was used in the 1979 NASA movie, The Space Movie. Tubular Bells was the most successful album on the Virgin label and was the pillar to its empire. The sales of Tubular Bells put it at number 34 in the list of best-selling albums of all time in the UK. Richard Branson allowed Mike Oldfield to record the album at the Manor Studios after hours. Oldfield ends up playing every instrument on the album. Mike Oldfield has released 26 studio albums since then. 9 went top 10 in the UK. His most recent album is Return to Omadon. Janet Jackson sampled Tubular Bells in the Velvet Rope album. Mike Oldfield is considered to be a pioneer of the New Age music genre.
Joe, what's most interesting about Tubular Bells to me is my connection to The Exorcist. The movie audio alone made me afraid of the dark from about 7 years old all the way up to
30?
I was like 15. Oh my God. Just imagine. I just got over
this. And you put it back.
My mom had some friends over to watch the movie, and I was too afraid to watch the movie. And I was too afraid to be in my room alone. So I ended up on the couch just listening and closing my eyes and just literally intaking the music of this, right? So think about that. At that point, I didn't know I was going to be in music how I was. So my imagination was just running wild with these sounds, the
Your mother
and the creaking stairs, like fuck me, like all this stuff that was happening, and I'm just hearing it all. You know what I mean? Like your imagination is wild when you let it run free. And as a kid, that's all you have. You have your imagination. Also, on a side note, I was trying to be cool and I told Marina about Tubular Bells and how it was used to create the Exorcist theme song. And she was like, I know. I danced to Tubular Bells from my dance recital. It's cool. I was like, really? That's kind of creepy. Yeah. And I just, I wanted to touch upon my connection to Tubular Bells and The Exorcist and, my childhood trauma. But in reality, the theme of our show is instrumental music, hence why we called it Lyricless. There's a power behind instrumental music, Joe. It could be just regular instrumental, any type of genre. You just take the lyrics out. There's also things like binaural music where people are playing with specific frequencies and playing in certain hertz to get certain, to create certain anxiety relieving soundscapes. It really is. This is a science-backed phenomenon. Science, where you promote brain growth and language skills and memory retention, concentration. Like there are endless benefits to instrumentation, and obviously this also leaks into playing instruments as well. But just at a very surface level, when you're gonna go out for a run and you got the right music, your run is just that much easier. You can go that much farther. Or if you're about to complete a very complex task, if you put on some instrumental music at a higher BPM, you're going to get that task done. You're going to get that task done faster and more efficient. So we're going to link a few case studies that have been done in our dungeon archives. So just check that out. You can always go to disdungeon.com or go to @disdungeonpodcast on our Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Check us out. We'll link the dungeon archives down there. But all in all, one of the best ways that I can describe this phenomenon and how we are really deeply connected to instrumental music is just really just looking at Americans in general. We love catchy shit. Like if it's not catchy, it's not good, which is not true, right? It's not like 1 + 1 = 2, but in reality, in America, it's like if you don't have some catchy melody, something that sticks in your head like bubble gum, it's just not going to stick.
Baby, 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 baby by Justin Bieber.
Yeah, that. Uh, and I was watching this documentary the other day, and they really just did a great way of explaining it. Sweden Sweden, being super smart, they're like, we have mastered the art of the pop song, but nobody wants to listen to a Swedish band. There's obviously exceptions. So what did they do? They started bringing over American singers, boy bands, Britney Spears, the Backstreet Boys, Justin Timberlake. They started bringing them over, writing songs for these individuals, knowing that they know how to capture the American attention span, let's say, and make pop music. And then at one point, they were interviewing the guy, and the guy was like, "What does 'Hit Me Baby One More Time' mean?" And he's like, "It doesn't mean anything." But the beat, the instrumental, and the melody were so good that it really didn't matter what we were saying. And so I guess I say this just to really sum it all up, that at the end of the day, if you have a good instrumental and a bad singer, you got something still. But if you have a good singer and a really bad instrumental, or something that's not catchy, let's just say, because really bad and good is, is very subjective at this point, you don't have much. So
Jack squat.
That's my those are my 2 cents. This is where I drop the mic.
Well, I'm going to give you a story of a time many moons ago, before Julie and I would dive deep down dark digital doorways. I would take the longest trip of my life in my youth to college. I didn't drive. I didn't drive until I was 24, actually. So I took the bus. I was saving the planet before it was cool, ladies and gentlemen. I drive a hybrid now. So this ride, however, wasn't an express bus. It was a long 2-hour journey through 8 towns. Visually, it was a beautiful ride. Lots of trees, stunning houses, some called mansions, towers rising from the streets at that time in some small towns. It was amazing to watch buildings grow and be built before me. But I would also watch buildings be razed and destroyed, bouldered away for glass giants. So I found an old pair of Panasonic headphones and picked up, once again, Tubular Bells. I first picked up Tubular Bells from Nobody Beats the Wiz in 1997. My uncle loved the song and wanted me to hear it. I had a thing about collecting CDs, and I still do. I don't have as many as I did at the time, but the world changed, whatever. I thought the cover was really interesting. Little did I know what was about to happen. This sparked a realization that I have been listening to Mike Oldfield since the 80s, not just 1995 or 97. My uncle had a mixtape. Yes, a metallic cassette tape. Have you ever had one of those, Julian?
I have not.
Okay. He got that from a friend, which had 5 miles out on one side. So I always knew of Mike Oldfield, but this was the album that I hadn't heard. The first time I made my own CD mix, I placed 2 songs, Tubular Bells 1 and 2, together. If timed right, part 2 would play after I got into Greenberg, out of the craziness of White Plains. Constant stops and goes of passengers getting on and off the bus. A trip that should only take an hour and 8 minutes would always end up taking so much longer because the density populated White Plains. The turn off the city of White Plains into the fields of Greenberg, just timed right, it was like entering the enchanted forest from Lord of the Rings. It made the travel so much more manageable. Anything to hasten that trip, and music was the river pushing the bus in my case. This album takes you in so many places, all of which heighten your senses as you aren't sure where it will turn next. It's such a masterpiece, and it almost didn't happen. This was the pillar of the Virgin music empire that spawned all the way into space.
So Joe, as I was diving deep into J Dilla's Donuts, I learned that a thesis paper was written entitled Behind the Beat, Technical and Practical Aspects of Instrumental Hip-Hop Composition by Michael D'Erico. J Dilla influenced the way we make music directly and indirectly. Artists like Kanye West were heavily influenced by J Dilla's unique style of production. Before J Dilla, sampling really had a negative connotation. It was deemed unoriginal. An excerpt from the Analysis of Sampling Techniques by J Dilla in Donuts by Zachary Diaz is the best description given of this phenomenon. So, quote, "In Rhymin' and Stealin', Musical Borrowing in Hip-Hop, Justin Williams discusses how the influence of artists' music and character can influence popular culture post-mortem. Using the late rappers Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac as examples, this occurrence is true of many prominent figures of hip-hop, as well as with popular music in general. Artists of the 27 Club, such as Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Kurt Cobain. A premature death at the height of an artist's career can sometimes catapult him or her into the status of a cultural icon." End quote. I was so captivated by the journey that Tubular Bells took me on that I decided to sample parts of the music in the very first Dungeon Flip. And also, I should say, also inspired by J Dilla as well, because listening to his sampling techniques and then listening to a piece of music that I wanted to sample was the perfect storm for this. For the first flip, I used the guitar at 11 minutes and 29 seconds in part 1. It sounds something like this. For flip 2, I used multiple parts between 1619 and 2134. And that sounds like this. And for flip number 3, I used about 20 seconds from 1502 to 1522 in a variety of ways to make a reggaeton beat. So that sounds like this. So as you can see, you can really do anything. Music is so amazing in that way that, yeah, this sounds like bagpipes when you use it this way, but it can sound like a melodic undertone for a Latino reggaeton beat, and vice versa. And there's this, that's what I love. And that's what J Dilla and Mike Oldfield in this episode have reminded me of, and have inspired me to just make sure that I'm always, crossing those barriers, because in reality they don't exist. This thing of genres that we talk about, they're just labels, and we don't like labels.
No labels.
This week, we didn't have to dive deep at all, because Mike Oldfield himself provided tricks of the keys. Mike has an unorthodox style of playing. He incorporates odd time signatures, often playing in 7/8 and 5/8, and rarely plays in standard tuning. For those of you listening who have no idea what that means, let me explain.
Thank you.
Western music predominantly plays in 4/4. This means that the emphasis of each phrase takes 4 counts to repeat. The kick drum is a good instrument to follow when figuring out the time signature. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over again in a loop, typically the kick drum accents the first beat, which is 1, every time it loops. Once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. An odd time signature uses odd numbers for each phrase. Using the same example from above, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 continuously, the kick drum accents the first beat on every loop. When you're not used to this count, the music can feel like it's off rhythm. But in this case, Mike is using his theory purposefully. You can tell something is different, but it doesn't feel off. Also, in Western music, the standard tuning on a 6-string guitar is called E standard. Each string is tuned to a different note, starting with E, then A, D, G, B, and then finally E again. Mike Oldfield creates his own standard, tuning each string to a different note, which offers the ability to play patterns that would otherwise be difficult or impossible in standard tuning. As an added bonus, it's worth mentioning that J Dilla's Donuts is an endless loop. As the last song, Welcome to the Show, ends, the first song, Donuts outro, starts.
These kingmakers did something special here.
Man, I gotta say, Joe, this is probably my favorite episode so far, if just based on music itself, you know.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I never listened to Jay Dilla before, and for you to put me onto something that just brought out and elicited so much emotion and time travel for me, it was an excellent experience. So this was like a... You want to say something?
This was like a what? This was like a what?
This is like a...
All right, guys. That just means we've been here too long. See you next time. I'm Julian Valencia.
And I'm Choked Up.